I wanted to start, as I start everything, with purpose and mission, because you got to start with the why, and give a little context to Uplight, and then context to our journey. So we exist to create a more sustainable future using business as a force for good. Everything we do starts from that place, in that North Star. We're a certified B Corp, so this mission is encapsulated in our articles of incorporation. As a board, as a management team, this is what we exist to pursue, is to motivate and enable energy users and providers to accelerate the clean energy ecosystem. I'll talk a little bit more later about why I harp so much on values, because we failed miserably along the way when we didn't. And so this is what we focus on at Uplight. This is what we hire and fire for. This is how we invest in and think about the growth and evolution of the team, about growing, the curiosity and excitement, ready to learn, the impactful progress to keep making progress every day. There's always going to be decisions that there's no clear answer to, and to lean on doing the right thing, to act with integrity. And ultimately and critically, as we get to the part of the journey of bringing 6 companies together via M&A in the span of 3 months, one team is really important. Operating all as one, and not just from where you came from, but really also then valuing the diverse perspective and unique insight and skills and talents that everybody's going to have. I was told that commercial was entirely okay. So quick commercial. We're hiring a lot. You see where our offices are in the US and Canada and in India. I'll talk about how much hiring we've done in the last quarter, but there are dozens and dozens of roles that we're hiring for mission-aligned people across software, product management, engineering, sales, customer success, you name it. All right, so enough of the commercial and the introduction. Let me give you the nitty-gritty of how do we get here, and some of the lessons learned along the way. Alistair shared a little bit about the sort of the later stage of this, but to just give you context, then as we go backward, we just announced a recent investment here with both strategics from Schneider Electric and AES, and a consortium of private equity investors. I mentioned briefly all of the M&A that we did in 2019. And I'm going to focus sort of in some of these milestones funding, not directly exactly the piece, but just the ups and downs along the way of going from picking a founder to work with, to early employees, incubator, Series A, Series B, and then the rocket ship that's been a lot of M&A and bringing in capital. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. So trying to practice that good piece. So hopefully you take something away from this. I'm going to talk both strategy and tactics. Starting on the strategy side, founder alignment. If you don't have that, then nothing else matters. When we started Simple Energy, Yoav, who's one of my best friends from college, and I spent a whole bunch of time starting with could we work together? Does 1 + 1 = 3? And all of that before we even got to what would we do or how would we do it? Because the whole foundational piece is, without that piece, nothing else matters. From there, and this is a lesson learned from frankly from failing and straying from it, that purpose that I shared with you more or less has not changed. We've tweaked the words, but creating a more sustainable future has persisted. But mission and values were things that as we get through the story, you'll hear about the diversion of that and how terrible that was. So really starting with that foundation, having that clarity and that intention about purpose, about mission, about values. What's your why? Why do you work there? And why should somebody join your team? Will flow through in everything. Focusing on team and culture at first. Of course, there's set of prerequisites. If your stack is in Python, then you want somebody who knows Python. If you're gonna make a big Scala investment, you may want somebody who knows Scala. But start with team and culture, and skills are things that people can learn and be supported. If people aren't additive and creative and generative in the culture and to the team, they can be the best skill set, but they won't make your team ultimately achieve its common purpose. Again, a failing here. I started from the view of, my startup's a family. It's going to be like my grandfather's family business, the department store. And that's not the right model, frankly, of building a startup if you want to have the kind of growth that many of us want to have when we start a company. It's a pro sports team rowing hard to a collective purpose and not a family of unconditional love. There's some people who I have a deep appreciation for along this journey who were phenomenal at a stage in our growth, and they were less fulfilled in another phase, and it was the right thing for them to move on. And finally, diversity by design. As we get through some of these pieces in the journey, the recognition of, in lack of diversity, the key voices that have been missing around the table, and the intent that must be there at the foundation if you want to build that diverse team, to go out, to seek it, to build it, to create it. We'll talk about some of these tactics as we go, but just that unifying purpose and culture are the flywheel. Like, without that, all of the other pieces of startup growth hacking and hiring hacking don't matter, because you won't have retention, and people won't do their best work. So places we've seen finding great people, leaning in on that. One just piece I've done, I always keep a note on my iPhone of great people I come across that I might want to work with. Some of them we're working together 8-10 years later. And then cultivating the nodes in the network is important. Those key connectors and cultivating those relationships, mentors, others, to find that. And last, on the tactical piece, close on your unique why. As we just heard, there's likely to always be more money, a bigger title, a bigger something someplace, right? Google will offer more money. So win on your uniqueness, and when you do, that you have a better chance to win on your unique why. All right, so there's my co-founder, Yoav. We spent a lot of time, as I said, figuring out, are we the right team? How are we going to build this? What does it look like? What do we want the company to be like, so that then when we add others, we can be intentional about that. That's our first office post Techstars, and really that investment was foundational, because when we were almost out of money, when we had to do layoffs, all of those pieces of that foundational strength of how are we going to build, how are we going to grow, what are we going to do, served to really help us get there. That was on Techstars demo day back in 2011. Me and Yoav and Chris, who was our first engineer, in terms of finding people, the question that I think we've had of sort of how do you find people, I was going to a bunch of meetups. Neither Yoav or I write code. So we had to go find somebody who was mission aligned, who wanted to be an early employee. And I was going to founder meetups and other places, and happened to sit down next to Chris, who was from Nashville, Tennessee. My wife and I got married in Nashville, Tennessee. We hit it off in that conversation, and he joined us. His son Reed, because we felt like we needed a fourth person in the picture for the Techstars photo. Those are our badge boards. That's how we motivated each other during Techstars. We all had tasks we needed to do, and we put stickers on there. Reed was a key part of the team. So then raised the seed round coming out of Techstars and grew the team to a whopping 6 people, which felt insane. That it was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And really, focusing on finding the people who are great in that phase. When you're basically all wearing lots of hats, we're sort of all doing parts of product. We're all, hacking together. We're all testing things. That really finding that set of team and the set of people that that we need to look for as that's successful. And in some cases, finding that people weren't right. There were people who came in who were great, but they were great at a later stage, and learning that quickly and finding that it was a good place or a good opportunity for them to move on, and really finding the right people to go do that. We raised more money. We raised about $6 million. That was great. The downside of all of that is we spent it too fast, too soon. And not on the right things. This was a video from, this is a picture from a video we made as part of our recruiting. So, in like things that I might have told you then, that I would say not a great idea now. Instead of spending on our recruiting budget, we were like, let's create a video that shows how awesome and fun this place is that'll make people want to come here. So we made this great video to party rock, lip sync, dancing all over the place. And frankly, it got a lot of candidates in the door. It definitely had the like, wow, that's a cool startup in Boulder. But frankly, it was symptomatic of some of the things that we were doing that just weren't right for the growth of the business. And And one of the ways, and this is one of the key pieces, unfortunately, this tool called Roundpeg, which was another Techstars Boulder company, got acquired and they shut the tool down. I love it. It was phenomenal because it was really a great way for us to quantitatively understand core values and values alignment, as opposed to the nebulous, values alignment or culture fit. And so what we were able to do in this, and this was right around the time of the layoffs that we did in 2015. So we'd raised that money, we'd spent it far faster than product market fit was actually there. We had to lay off 2/3 of the company, and more people followed. After you do a layoff, it sucks for the people who are still there. Many of them leave. Relative to that time, I think there's 4 of us who are still here. So Roundpeg was this great tool. We were able to then quantitatively understand where were we. They measured everybody on a normalized scale of 0 to 100, 0 being no alignment, 100 being full alignment on values. As I said at the beginning, diversity is critical. The success of your business is predicated on diverse perspectives who represent your users and your customers. Diversity of values, not so much. If we value really different things and we don't work well together, then you get all kinds of silos and all kinds of infighting. That was our case. We had a score of 8 out of 100. Now, we spent the next 1.5 years focused on all things culture and all things values, because we knew that if we did not do that, there was no way that we would be successful. And from a founder perspective, getting to the place where you had less than 3 weeks of cash in the bank and you had to go to your early investors and say, we need a bridge and we're going to spend every day figuring out how we get cash in the door to stay alive. I can tell you that place sucks. It's miserable. It's also the crucible of a whole lot of learning. And I will tell you that if there's one thing you take away from this entire conversation, invest in culture and invest in values. The difference from when our score was an 8 to when our score in Roundpeg was at a 96 was monumental. Not only was it joyful and fulfilling to do that work, but more importantly, in the success also that we had in the business, because those two became aligned and became a flywheel. Couple of insights from some pieces in that phase that really helped. All of us who are founders like to think that our approach to things is the best. And if you might say, if I could just have more of us, let's just have more founders, we can go drive this. Bain did some great work around this, around the founders mentality, to try to capture that, which I offer as a sense of, in those early stages of growth, and frankly, I'd say it's still what we look for as we're at 500-600 people. Who are the people who can bring this founders mentality, that insurgency that we're on a big, bold mission to do something for our customers that only we can do, that we're obsessed with the outcomes, and that we own it as though it's our own. And the data supports it. If you look at those who have that, these are the top performing companies. We all start here, we're small, but we come with this really strong sense of insurgency. And as we grow, the goal is to then get more of that strength and more of those resources to be able to scale. And if you think about why is this valuable, because those who do it best are the ones who succeed the most. Only 7% of companies get there, but they create 50% of the net value in the stock market each year. So if you're thinking about value creation and you're thinking about how are you going to take that founder's mentality at scale, look for the people who have the founder's mentality, cultivate that in and amongst the team, and do that to then go drive scale. So in this quick tour of the last decade of how do we go from the two of us, almost exactly 11 years ago today, actually, Yoav and I were sitting there having the first conversation about, are we going to start something, to the merger that we did with Tendril in 2019 and in the last 1.5 years. And some really important lessons learned of a whole nother piece of growth, of how do we bring together some amazing teams, because we brought together 6 different companies who all had uniqueness, who all had great teams, who all had great pieces that we could learn from, and then find out what those sort of right ingredients are and build on it. We just had our Q1 quarterly business review with the whole company yesterday morning, and we hired 149 new people between employees and contractors last quarter. One of the things, as I mentioned, in diversity by design has been a focus in gender, in in different racial backgrounds, in different geographic backgrounds. So we've really had an intentional focus of how do we want to bring in those diverse perspectives. So you can see one of the pieces that we had identified that we needed to have an intentional focus in the team and in our growth is in gender, the gender balance, not only across the company as a whole, but also within teams. So about a third of those hires are full-time employees. The other 2/3 are currently contractors. And so proud of the progress that we've made. A lot of work to still do on our inclusive excellence journey. But that one of the key pieces for the learnings here is that as you start to understand, where the flywheel of talent pools are, of the things that people really want to come to, certainly helped towards the end of the quarter with our announcement about our funding and being valued at $1.5 billion. It's amazing who comes out of the woodwork to want to work with you in that place. But really having that great set, and as we talked about in the last conversation, the signaling of what might make equity feel valuable or opportunities, having a great set of investors, really being able to speak to that mission alignment and the set of things that we're doing, we find to be really powerful. That as we're able to focus back on our purpose and our mission, and tell the congruent story of all of our investors who are supported in our focus, not only in our space, but also in the long term, that we're able to whether as a private company or eventually as a public company, that we have a set of investors that are able to help bring that all together. So finally, I'll close out with just a framework that we've been using in this phase that I wish I'd been more intentional about in the earlier days. Of it all starts from recruiting of what's the role for the individual and how do they fit in this, and how does that not connect to what we're achieving. It may just be in the early days just the individual to the company, but as we've grown, that how do we have that steel thread from the individual to what their engineering team or their product team or their sales team is accomplishing, to our department. We call them pillars, and ultimately to the company and to the mission. And really doing this, a thing that we found has been great in this process, because it's not just the hiring, it's getting them in, getting them productive, and supporting them to help you achieve, is that steel thread from what we call the personal plan on a page. So what somebody's focused on their outcomes for the quarter, that they can connect the dots all the way up this chain to the mission impact, to the carbon savings, to the bill savings we're enabling for our customers. All right, so that's a lot that I just covered. I think I hit my 20 minutes that I'd promised. So, Alistair, question away.
I've got lots, and we have some from other people too. I even changed my background just for you. Hey, that was great. Good overview. And I love the fact that we're seeing all these different perspectives. Nia from the point of view of the candidate, you from the point of view of the rapidly scaling unicorn. And after this, we're going to hear from Claire McHugh from Actionista, who's kind of grown organically, but now needs to step on the gas. And obviously, those are very different perspectives. Before we get to my questions, if we have time for them, Daniel was asking, can you talk about like very early stage, seed stage, other than just crawling LinkedIn and hoping for something? What tricks have you seen for companies to kind of punch above their weight and find those full stack developers that can then entice others to join, or find that talent that kind of makes everybody else want to follow on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say we tried lots of things, and I don't know that there's a single answer. So I'll give you some of the things that worked in the early days. Everything from, I mentioned the sort of founder meetups. I mean, that was one place that I like to go, because I think people who are looking for a co-founder or thinking about starting a company are a really great person, even if they're not a founder, perhaps, to be an early employee. So that was one place that I would say we had some success, was going to founder meetups, being in those conversations. A second was we went to people who we had worked with in other places, that it was not a new thing. One of the first engineers that we hired in Techstars was somebody who Yoav had worked with in DC, who happened to not be doing anything at that moment. And we called him and said, we got a bunch of stuff to build in the next 6 weeks before demo day. I got you a plane ticket out to Boulder. You can crash on my couch, and let's just get started. right? And he ended up being our lead engineer for the next few years. And it started from Aaron happened to not be doing anything at the moment. I just bought him a ticket and said, let's go get out here and let's get going. And that was great. And then he went on to start a company called Founder Card that Goldman Sachs bought. And it was awesome. So I would say
I've heard that from, I was talking to Jeremy Edberg, who was the first employee at Reddit. And he said like the number of hires they've made that began with YT, like literally someone's in chat and they go, YT, like, are you there? And the person replies, yep. And they're like, you need to come here now. And then the head of HR at some big company suddenly goes, why are you quitting? I just have to go. And so there's so much of that sort of shadow underground network among people who've worked together or like each other that I think is something that's opaque. And like, to me, when I talk to founders and they aren't aware of that underground network, you're like, that's the biggest problem you need to address is you don't know who to chat to change someone's career trajectory right away. That's a hard world to break into, you know?
I would fully agree. And I would say, anytime I talk to anybody about Techstars, in my experience would be hands down amazing. We wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be where we are without it. And it comes to that network. It comes to our mentors, right? I didn't talk nearly enough about our mentors in that process. But, this company nearly died multiple times along the way. And who were the first people who we called were those mentors. When we needed critical hires where we said, okay, we need somebody in this, who are the first people that we turned to? Those mentors and said, who do you know that's like this? And what I would say is one of the other things that I found helpful is sometimes start with the archetype. You may not know exactly who you're hiring for, but an easy ask to other people is, who's the best product manager you know? I want to talk to them. And what that'll help do is say, I'll get a good idea of what a great product manager looks like. Maybe that person's not the right person. Odds are if they're a great product manager, they know some other product manager who's not happy. And so that'd be another hack that I found is like, try to build the archetype in your mind, both so that you know more of who are you looking for, and then ask people I'm trying to figure out who would be the best product manager for me in this stage. Can you introduce me to one person who's the best product manager at the seed stage that you know? And now you're building a network.
It's almost like that old adage of, if you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. I guess if you want to hire someone, ask for advice first, and maybe it'll lead to that. A couple other quick questions. Danica was asking about the tool that you use for quantitative culture measurement.
Yeah. So the tool that we used back in those days was a tool called Roundpeg, which unfortunately great for the company. They got acquired. Then the company that acquired them shut it down. We are actually at Uplight now starting to use a new tool that for us called Culture Amp, which I think others may be familiar with, that does some more of that. The thing that Roundpeg did that was just super simple that I liked was it had 36 values, all were positive, and it was just, I put these 9 as things I value high, 9 that I value low. There's no judgment in that. It just gives you a very quantitative, like, what do I as a person value? So for example, I don't like a lot of, order to things. I like chaos. I'm an entrepreneur. In certain roles, that can be really great to have somebody who's like, I value order, because they're going to balance that out. And in certain cases, you look at it and go, gosh, we're not going to work together well. You want clarity of everything before you start. And I just want to be running down the field before we get to any form of clarity. So even without the tool, I find that more quantitative, intentional inquiry to be really valuable. And I'm excited that we're rolling out Culture Amp here at Uplight now, and on getting back to some more quantitative tools that we've lately been hacking with Google Forms and whatnot. That I missed a better quantitative way of understanding.
Okay, we have 2 minutes. I want to shoot 2 quick questions at you. Nick asked, can you speak about the time frame between each of your funding milestones, maybe in the context of hiring as well, since that's the focus of this? So your seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, how far apart were they? And like what did they trigger in terms of staffing?
Yeah, totally. So let's see, we raised Friends and Family in early 2011, February of 11. Then we did a seed round coming out of Techstars in fall of 2011. So that first one was like 1 person, and then we used a bit of that to bring on a couple of people during Techstars. Then out of that seed, to 6, and then up to 10, a little bit above 10. Then let's see. Then we did another round in 2013 that that then we added, about another 10 people. And then we did the $6 million round in early 2014, which then we hired way too many people. We were up to 60 something. And then after we had to do our layoffs, we were down to 20 something. And then we raised a strategic investment from AES in 2018. So a big piece of sort of post that layoff, that then we really focused on make sure the revenue was there to support it. So, in the whole sort of Uplight or in the simple energy journey until the merger, we had really raised about $8 million of venture that was sort of close together on the front, then spaced out. AES strategic investment was in 2018. We did the merger in 2019, and then just announced the new capital here in early 2021.
That is quite the roller coaster. You kind of answered my second question about hiring indigestion a little bit. So Justin, thank you so much. It's nice to get you in front of people to understand what you're doing, and congratulations on the fundraising and the continued growth. I know it's been 10 years since that Techstars accelerator, so that's one heck of a roller coaster, and we really appreciate you taking some time to share that with us. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thanks for having me. Feel free to reach out if folks have other questions, and I hope you take some of these pieces and use them for a lot of great success in your company. I'll be cheering you on.